Hi everyone, a space for sharing tales filled with feelings and surprises. Now let's explore this unique tale. I'm Lily, a stepmother who is getting close to turning 40 today. I want to share with you my own story, which still makes my heart ache. Every day went by relentlessly like a never-ending nightmare, and I had no idea when it would end, which only made me feel more hopeless and confused. My husband Matthew was out on a business trip one day, so it was just his 2 boys and me at home. That afternoon, I was standing in the kitchen making dinner. It was so quiet that the only sounds I could hear were the clanking of knives and the smell of food coming from the stew pot on the stove. Suddenly, from the hallway upstairs, I heard hurried footsteps before I could turn around. John, 20, and Max, 18, are both adults, but I always maintain a certain distance because I am the stepmother in an effort to prevent my role from affecting our already delicate relationship. Max's death is imminent. When I heard his urgent, worried voice, I dropped everything I was doing and ran after John, not having time to think. My heart was racing with anxiety, wondering what Max's impending death meant, whether he was ill or had an accident. When I arrived at Max's door, I had no time to mentally prepare myself because the scene before my eyes made me freeze. Max, with his small, lean figure, stood there in the window light, fully nude. Shown in a way that revealed each line on his body. Max grinned. Something about it made me shudder, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It wasn't a joyful grin, nor was it one of pain or assistance. "Max, what are you doing?" I stammered, my voice shaking with surprise and bewilderment. I made an effort to turn my head away, but the picture was so ingrained in my brain that I would never be able to forget it before I could react. Max hurried over, took hold of my hand, and dragged me inside the room. His move was firm and surprisingly strong, and I frantically tried to fight, but the door behind me clicked shut before I could take any action. John, the person who had just brought me here, was standing in front of the door, his eyes staring at me bewildered, as if to suggest both complicity and hesitation. John opened the door, and I turned around and yelled, trying to remain calm, but my voice was lost in panic. As I was trying to relax and get out of the tense situation, I felt a weight from behind me. John was near me, his 2 hands gently holding my shoulders and his breath blowing near mine. "Stepmom." His voice was low in horror, like a brazen and cunning confession, and it made me shiver. "We can't take seeing you with father." I was in disbelief at what I had just heard. "What are you talking about, John? I don't get it." I stumbled as I tried to turn to face him, but John remained motionless, his eyes fixed on me and refusing to go just yet. Max came closer and closer, bending down so low that our faces were just a few centimeters away, as though he was purposefully extending the suffocation in the air. Max gave me a peculiar in-depth gaze that made me feel as though he could read every thought I had. "Mom." Max's cold, flat voice said, "Please indulge us." It hit me like a blow, tightening my throat and freezing my body in terror. I screamed in my heart, but my legs were immobile. The kids I had always tried to protect, the kids I thought I could love, were now doing this to me. I struggled to get away from the pressure that was holding me, but Max was in front of me and behind me was John. The first attempted to scream, but my voice was so faint and feeble that even I didn't recognize it. They both blocked my escape routes like a wall. Max gave a little but noticeable smile, with his eyes challenging any appeal. He continued, "Mom, don't try to resist. We don't want to hurt you. We just want you to know how important you are to us." Every word Max spoke was like a dagger piercing my sanity, even if his tone was steady. "Max, what are you guys doing, John? Stop it immediately," I said, attempting to contain my terror, but it just made them both more fearless. John tightened his hold on my shoulders from behind, bending down near my ear and saying, "Stepmom, you don't understand. Every time we see you, we can't control ourselves." I tried to push John away, but I was unable to do so. I was about to say something, but before I could get out, an arm appeared beneath my thin shirt, its fingertips touching my secrets with a seductive warmth that made my entire body freeze. A weird electric current then ran down my spine, causing all my senses to a paralyzed state. My body no longer listened to my mind like a natural reflex, and each intimate gesture was gradually responded to weakly before becoming more intense. I tried to control my body, wanting to step back, wanting to escape this seductive touch, but it was terrifying. I really wanted to say stop, but my lips were pressed together, the words unable to escape, as if the weight of the struggle inside me had locked my will in that moment. I tried to maintain some sanity and find myself in the middle of this chaos, But all of my efforts were in vain because what was happening around me was like a nightmare from which I couldn't escape. They took turns touching me, and without hesitation or reserve, their eyes shone with triumph and boldness. Each movement seemed to pull me into a dead-end vortex where all of my will to control was gradually eroded. Direct antithesis to the mentality that screams I knew it was wrong, that I was crossing a line of no return. But it was terrifying to realize that I couldn't stop myself from experiencing even a small portion of this unfamiliar excitement. It was an uncomfortable mixture of deep humiliation, loss, and an emotion I couldn't name that was almost foreign and full of guilt. It was like a whirlwind that swept away every logical barrier I'd built up throughout my life, and with every moment that went by, I felt myself losing more and more of what I had believed and what I had held on to were now only pieces. The reality before my eyes became warped and confused like a picture ripped by uncontrolled colors, and I was no longer myself. Instead, I was an undefined entity exploited and manipulated by powerful hands and untamed eyes. My final boundaries had been crossed, both mentally and physically, and I can't recall how I managed to bear it all. It was a battle between consciousness and instinct, between a frantic desire to flee and a growing sense of surrender. Crossed every line, and I had done the same that afternoon. When it was all finished, I stood still, unable to move. The clock was ticking in the room now, and I attempted to breathe, but my chest felt constricted. I had gone too far, and every step I took to leave the room felt heavy, as though the weight of my transgression had been fastened to my shoulders. My mind was racing with ideas. Images of Max and John, my husband's 2 children from a previous relationship, ran through my thoughts. What had I done? How had this happened? We had strayed in a moment of weakness and had crossed moral boundaries that should never have been crossed, leaving me feeling guilty and completely confused. I entered the bathroom and let the cold water run over me in the hopes that it would wash away the dirt that was all around me. But it was unable to calm the chaos in my head. If I had the will to continue acting as though nothing had occurred, I wondered how long I could conceal this. I noticed a weird face in the mirror, with eyes that were deep and vacant. A part of me wanted to tell I told myself that time would heal all wounds and that if I did not speak out, no one would know, but Max and John did not think, so I felt their eyes, which seemed to confirm that now between us, but that thought was immediately rejected. If I told him everything, admit everything, and take responsibility, this family would be torn apart. The broken pieces of trust would never be put back together again. I could not do that to my husband, who had always loved and trusted me completely. Every time Matthew left the house, Max and John seemed to change into different people. Bolder, stronger, and completely leaving no room for me to resist. At first, I still tried to resist. I screamed, pushed them away, struggled in vain, but their actions were like this. They started approaching me more frequently with ambiguous gestures and words, making it impossible for me to find peace. I felt small and helpless in front of their strength and determination, but the scariest part was that my resistance gradually weakened until I had no more strength to push them away. No more screaming or struggling. Instead, my body started to react in a different way that I didn't want and couldn't. Little echoes in the empty room couldn't shake their determination, and my resistance only made them more excited, as if they saw in it a game or challenge that made them want to take more each time. Command at first, I still felt a little embarrassed and showed some resistance in my eyes or gestures, but as time passed, that feeling gradually vanished and was replaced by emptiness. I no longer had the strength to think much, and I started to accept their actions without any reaction. I felt like all the doors in my mind had been locked, and I could only accept it. Ma and John appeared to realize that every move and glance they made reminded me that I now physically and emotionally belonged to them. The modification, their audacity became increasingly apparent. They no longer had to question or wait. Instead, they took me whenever they could. They made these moments into a habit, and I went from fiercely resisting to passively accepting everything they imposed. I knew that this was wrong and that it went beyond what a woman could tolerate, but it was terrifying to realize that I no longer had the strength to refuse, that my body had been worn down, and that my mind had been exhausted. Had come to terms with the fact that it was unavoidable. I felt as though I no longer belonged to myself. I was merely a part of an unending cycle, a game that I could never control. Gradually, I lost all feeling, leaving behind nothing but emptiness and an unnameable dull ache. I wasn't sure how long I could keep living this way, or whether I would have the strength to escape the hole I had fallen into, and those days turned into an endless cycle where every day only brought more darkness into my life, and every night I lay next to Matthew. I wondered if I should tell everything to end it all to free myself, but if I did, what would happen to this family? Would Matthew ever forgive me, or would he leave? I watched him sleep soundly, his face so serene that it made my heart hurt. He had no idea what was going on behind his back, that the wife he trusted and loved was carrying such a dark secret. I've always wanted to kneel before him and confess everything, to admit that I was wrong and that I wasn't strong enough to stop it from occurring in the first place, but my weak and scared side kept me from doing so. I was afraid of losing him and the family we had created together, of his disappointed, piercing eyes, of his reprimands, and of an irreversible breakup. However, if I remain silent, how many more days will this last? Can I handle this? Max and John don't seem to be stopping, and I'm losing control of myself and getting more and more lost in the quagmire of resignation, which worries me more than. I need to find a way to escape this family, but I'm not sure how to ask you. Should I tell you everything, or should I remain silent and attempt to bear this burden? Please advise. I can't handle my own narrative alone any longer. I understand that the best solution to any issue is never to remain silent. If left untreated, little aches can grow into large cracks that might harm your most valuable possessions. When you decide to hide, you not only put yourself through agony but also produce chances for others to continue harming you. I want to really advise everyone to always have the courage to confront the truth, no matter how hard it is. Nobody is perfect, everyone makes errors. What matters is how we decide to correct them. Silence only causes you to lose yourself, so others around you look for assistance from family members or professionals you can trust. Sometimes, just one person's understanding and listening may help you break through seemingly never-ending deadlocks. Similarly, never allow fear to make you a. No matter what happens, at least you have made an effort to uphold your core values and safeguard your most valuable possessions, which are self-respect and dignity. Strength in your own life does not come from concealing faults but rather from acknowledging them and figuring out how to correct them. My narrative stops here. I am at a crossroads between escape and silence confession, but I am at a loss for what to do. I am not sure how I will end it all, and it may remain in my head forever with no conclusion. If you have read it, please do not pass judgment or chastise me. I just want to feel a little better when I say that the TVH story is over. If you think this story is interesting and thought-provoking, please help us by liking it, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with others you believe should hear it. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments section, as we always value your feedback, which inspires us to keep bringing you more fascinating stories. I'll see you in the upcoming videos.